As a financial analyst at Blackwood Corporation, I have always prided myself on my work ethic and dedication. It wasn't easy to get here, and I knew I had a responsibility to maintain the integrity of our financial records. But nothing could prepare me for what I encountered that Friday afternoon. It was the end of the day and most of my colleagues had already left the office. I was still immersed in analyzing the company's expenses when something caught my attention. A significant discrepancy in the accounting books. Initially, I thought it might be a release error, something that could be fixed with further checking. But the more I investigated, the more it became clear that this was not a simple mistake. "Lisa, do you have a minute?" I asked my friend and company accountant, Lisa Green, as I walked to her table. "Of course, Emily." "What happened?" she replied, looking up from the documents she was reviewing. "I found something strange in the financial records. There are funds that are not matching expected transactions. Can you help me check this?" Lisa furrowed her eyebrows and leaned over to look at my computer screen. "That doesn't seem right. Let's take a closer look." We spent the next few hours reviewing the documents together. Little by little, the truth began to reveal itself. The embezzlement of funds was evident, and all signs pointed to a single person, Jonathan Black, the charismatic and influential head of the entire corporation. "Lisa, this is serious. Jonathan is embezzling company funds. We need to do something about this," I declared, feeling a knot in my stomach. "Emily, we have to be careful. Jonathan has a lot of influence here. If he finds out we're investigating, it could be dangerous for us," Lisa warned, worried. But I knew I couldn't just ignore what I had discovered. Jonathan was one of the company's most respected executives, known for his charm and leadership skills. However, behind this facade was a network of corruption that I was determined to expose. "We can't let this go, Lisa. We need to gather solid evidence before we do anything. I'll keep investigating, but we need to keep this a secret," I decided, with resolution in my voice. Lisa nodded, still with a worried expression. "I'm with you, Emily. Just be careful." Over the next few days, I began to discreetly investigate. Every step was meticulously planned, every movement carefully calculated. I knew that any mistake could be fatal. Documents began mysteriously disappearing, and coworkers avoided helping me, fearing retaliation. I was alone in this battle, but I couldn't give up. One night, as I was reviewing more documents, Tyler Mitchell, a coworker, approached my desk. "Emily, you seem worried. Is everything okay?" I looked at him hesitantly. Tyler had always been a good friend, but I didn't know if I could trust him completely. "It's complicated, Tyler. I'm investigating something serious and I don't know who to trust." He seemed to reflect for a moment before responding. "If you need help, I'm here. You can trust me." His eyes showed sincerity, and I knew I needed all the help I could get. "Thanks, Tyler. I'm going to need all the help I can get." As we continued the investigation, I realized that Jonathan was not acting alone. The corruption network extended to other senior executives in the company, making the situation even more complex. I was dealing with something much bigger than I imagined, and with each new discovery, my determination only grew. "Lisa, we need to be even more cautious. This is bigger than we thought. Jonathan has accomplices," I shared with my friend as we reviewed more documents. "Emily, this is getting dangerous. We need to be extremely careful." "We don't know how far this network extends," Lisa replied, with a serious tone. I knew she was right. Every day, the pressure increased, but I couldn't stop. The truth needed to be revealed, and I was willing to risk everything to expose Jonathan and cleanse the Blackwood Corporation of corruption. Determined to gather evidence against Jonathan, I knew I needed to proceed with extreme caution. Any slip-up could not only put my career at risk, but also my life. I began to investigate discreetly, painstakingly analyzing every document and financial record I could access without arousing suspicion. However, it seemed like with every step I took, new obstacles appeared. One morning, when I arrived at the office, I noticed that some important documents had mysteriously disappeared from my desk. Frustrated, I went to the archives department to see if someone had moved them without telling me. There, I met Tyler Mitchell, a coworker with whom I had a cordial relationship. "Hey, Tyler, have you seen the financial transfer documents from last quarter?" I asked, trying to sound casual. "No, Emily, I didn't see anything. But I heard the filing system has been a mess lately," he replied, looking genuinely concerned. I decided to trust him, at least for now. As the days went by, Tyler became more and more willing to help me. He seemed to have access to information I couldn't get on my own, and over time our relationship deepened. We spent hours after work reviewing records and strategizing how to obtain concrete evidence against Jonathan. One night while we were at the office, Tyler looked at me with a serious expression and said, "Emily, I have something to tell you. There are more people involved in this than you might think. Jonathan is not acting alone." "What do you mean by that?" I asked, surprised. "I discovered that there is a network of corruption involving several senior executives at the company. They are embezzling funds on a massive scale, and Jonathan is just the tip of the iceberg." The gravity of the situation hit me like a punch in the stomach. From that moment on, I knew I was dealing with something much bigger and more dangerous than I imagined. However, Tyler's presence by my side gave me a sense of security and support. As our investigation progressed, I began to notice that many coworkers avoided helping me out of fear of retaliation. Documents mysteriously disappeared, and I felt like I was being watched at every move. One afternoon, while discussing the situation with Tyler in the company cafeteria, he asked me a question that made me uneasy. "Emily, how far are you willing to go to expose Jonathan?" "Until the end, Tyler. I cannot allow this to continue." "But in you? What is your motivation for helping me?" Tyler hesitated for a moment before responding. "I want to do the right thing. And also," he stopped, looking around to make sure no one was listening. "I have my own secrets, Emily. I can't go into details right now, but know that I'm on your side." Despite the uncertainty, I decided to trust Tyler. I knew I needed all the help I could get to confront Jonathan and his network of corruption. Our collaboration became more intense, and with each discovery, we felt we were closer to revealing the truth. One night, as we were reviewing some documents Tyler had obtained, he looked me in the eyes and said, "Emily, we have to be extremely careful. Jonathan is dangerous, and he will not hesitate to do whatever is necessary to silence us." "I know, Tyler. But we can't give up now. We are very close." With each obstacle overcome, our determination intensified. We knew we were risking everything, but the search for justice drove us to continue. And together, we were ready to face any challenge that came our way. As I continued my investigation, it became clear that Jonathan was not acting alone. The situation was much more complex than I had initially imagined. I began to realize that there was a network of corruption involving several senior executives at the company. The layers of illegalities and misappropriation of resources were deep and intricate. Each new discovery seemed to lead to another even more disturbing one. It was then that I realized I needed help. My longtime friend, Lisa Green, was the company's accountant and had privileged access to the finances. I knew that if anyone could help me unravel this tangle of corruption, it would be her. "Lisa, I need to talk to you." "It's urgent," I said, trying to keep my voice steady as I looked around to make sure no one heard us. She looked at me with surprise and a little concern. "Of course, Emily. What's going on?" I explained to her everything I had discovered up to that point. I talked about Jonathan, the misappropriated funds, and the web of corruption that seemed to involve more people than I could count. Lisa listened intently, without interrupting, but I could see the uneasiness growing in her eyes. "Emily, this is very serious. And dangerous," she finally said, her voice low and cautious. "Are you sure you want to go through with this?" I knew Lisa was right, but I also knew I couldn't just turn my back on what I had discovered. "Lisa, I can't ignore this. Someone needs to expose this corruption, and I think that person is me." but I need your help." Lisa sighed and ran a hand through her hair. "I'll help you, Emily. But we need to be extremely careful. If anyone finds out we're investigating this, it could be the end for both of us." From that moment on, Lisa and I started working together. She provided me with access to documents and records that I would not have been able to obtain on my own. We spent nights and weekends analyzing spreadsheets, crossing data, and looking for any clue that could lead us to Jonathan's accomplices. "Look at this, Emily," Lisa said one night, pointing to a discrepancy in one of the spreadsheets. "These transfers to offshore accounts. They are huge and frequent. This cannot be a coincidence." I leaned over the table to get a closer look. "You're right, Lisa. This is an important clue. We need to find out who these accounts belong to." Each new discovery seemed to confirm that we were on the right path, but it also increased the feeling of danger. We knew we were dealing with powerful and unscrupulous people. The tension was constant, but the determination to expose the truth kept us focused. "Emily, I'm starting to get really worried," Lisa said one day, her voice shaking. "I received an anonymous call today. The person knew things about my family. I think we are being watched." My concern increased upon hearing this, but I tried to remain calm. "Lisa, we're going to take every possible precaution. We need to be even more discreet. But we can't stop now. We're close to something big." It was in this climate of tension and urgency that we continued our investigation. We knew that each step brought us closer to the truth, but it also put us in greater danger. The corruption network was vast, and the risks were high, but our determination was even greater. "We'll make it, Lisa," I said, trying to infuse my words with confidence. "We're going to expose Jonathan and everyone involved. And when that happens, it will be worth it." Lisa nodded, although worry was still visible on her face. "I hope you're right, Emily. I hope we're doing the right thing." And with that, we returned to work, knowing that each day brought us new discoveries and new dangers, but also brought us closer to the justice we so sought. Lisa's loyalty was tested in ways I could never have imagined. It all started when she received an anonymous message threatening her family. I clearly remember the day she walked into my office, pale and shaking. "Emily, I need to talk to you now," Lisa said, almost whispering. His eyes were wide with fear. "Of course, Lisa. What happened?" I asked, worried. She closed the door and approached my desk, holding a crumpled paper in her hand. "I got this morning. It was in my mailbox." I picked up the paper and read the threat: "If you continue to help Emily, your family will pay the price." My stomach turned. I felt the gravity of the situation tightening my chest. "Lisa, this is serious. We need to be careful," I said, trying to remain calm. "But we can't stop now. We're so close to getting the evidence we need." She took a deep breath, trying to control her tears. "I know, Emily. But I'm scared. I can't put my family at risk." "I understand, Lisa. And I respect your decision, but you're the only one who has access to the information we need. Without you, we won't be able to take down Jonathan and his network of corruption." Lisa looked at me, visibly torn. "I'll help you, Emily. But my identity needs to remain anonymous. No one can know I'm involved." "I promise, Lisa. I will protect your identity at all costs," I assured, holding her hand. With that, we started working together. Lisa became a key player in my investigation. She had access to documents that I would never have obtained on my own. We spent hours reviewing ledgers, bank statements, and financial reports, looking for any evidence linking Jonathan to the embezzlement. "Emily, look at this," Lisa said one night, pointing to a suspicious transaction in one of the reports. "There is a transfer from a company account to an offshore account. This should not be here." "That's exactly what we need, Lisa. Let's print this out and keep it somewhere safe," I replied, feeling a mix of relief and adrenaline. As we advanced, the threats increased. It was clear that Jonathan and his accomplices were beginning to feel the pressure. Once, we found our room ransacked, documents scattered everywhere. Emily, they know we're after them. We need to be even more careful, warned Lisa, trying to control her panic. I know, Lisa. But this only confirms that we are on the right path. We can't give up now, I replied, determined. Every day, the corruption network became more complex and dangerous. Jonathan was not acting alone, there were several executives involved, all profiting at the company's expense. I realized that I was dealing with an organization that was much more dangerous than I imagined. Lisa, this is getting more and more dangerous. If at any point you want to stop, I'll understand, she said, worried about her safety. No, Emily. We're already in the middle of this. Let's go to the end. We need to expose these criminals, Lisa replied with determination. We had to take extra precautions to ensure our safety. We started communicating using codes and storing evidence in different locations. Every step was meticulously planned to prevent us from being discovered. Emily, we're doing the right thing. We need to trust each other and keep going, Lisa said, giving me courage in moments of doubt. Lisa's loyalty was unwavering, even in the face of threats. His courage inspired me to move forward, to not give up, even when everything seemed to be against us. Together, we were determined to reveal the truth and take down Jonathan and his network of corruption, whatever the cost. Another challenge arose when the mysterious hacker known only as Spectre arrived on the scene. I was in my apartment, once again reviewing the documents I had managed to gather with Lisa's help, when my cell phone rang. The number was unknown, but at that point, I expected the unexpected. I answered and a distorted, almost robotic voice said, Emily Carter, I know what you're trying to do. I can help, but it will be expensive. My heart accelerated. Who is this person? How did she know my name and what I was doing? I decided to stay calm and try to extract as much information as possible. Who are you? And how can you help me? I asked, trying to sound confident. You can call me Spectre. I have access to information that you would never get on your own. I know where Jonathan hides the falsified records and I have concrete evidence that could bring him down. But in return, I need you to do something for me. Spectre's presence added a layer of tension and uncertainty to my already complicated situation. I didn't know if I could trust him, but his words seemed genuine. However, what did he want in return? I wondered if I was being manipulated, but decided to listen more. And what exactly do you want in return? I asked, trying not to show the distrust that consumed me. There is a server at the company where you work. I need you to access this server and copy some specific files for me. These files are vital to another investigation I am conducting. In exchange, I will give you all the evidence you need to expose Jonathan and his network of corruption. It was a risky proposition. If I were caught accessing the server, I could lose my job and, even worse, put my life at risk. But the information Spectre promised could be the key to finally dismantling Jonathan's entire operation. I'll need more details. Which files specifically? And how do I know I can trust you? I questioned. I will send you an email with all detailed instructions. And as for trusting me, you don't have much of a choice, do you? Spectre's voice sounded almost ironic. Think about it, Emily. I'm on your side, for now. The call ended abruptly, leaving me with a mixture of relief and apprehension. I knew I needed to talk to Lisa about this. She was as involved as I was, and any misstep could be disastrous for both of us. The next day, I met Lisa at a low-key cafe. I explained the situation and what Spectre had asked of me. Emily, this is very risky. What if it's a trap? Lisa was visibly worried. I know, Lisa. But we don't have many options. We already have the evidence we have obtained so far, but it is still insufficient to take down Jonathan and the others. We need something more concrete, something that really puts them up against the wall. Lisa sighed, reflecting on what I had said. She knew I was right, but the fear was palpable in her eyes. It's okay, Emily. If we're going to do this, we need to be extremely careful. I will help you access the server, but we need to plan everything down to the smallest detail. And if Spectre betrays us, we need to be prepared to deal with it. I nodded. I knew we were entering dangerous territory, but I also knew we couldn't stop now. The corruption within the company was deep, and Jonathan needed to be exposed. I received Spectre's email that evening, with detailed instructions on how to access the server and what files to copy. He also sent a hacking tool that he said would ensure our success without being detected. With the plan drawn up, Lisa and I prepared for the mission. D-Day arrived, and I entered the company with a mix of adrenaline and nervousness. I followed Spectre's instructions to the letter, feeling every second like an eternity. Finally, I managed to copy the files and sent them to the email Spectre had provided. The next day, I received a new call from Spectre. "Good job, Emily. As promised, here is the proof you need." He sent me a link to secure online storage. "And remember, we're in this together, for now." I hung up the phone feeling a mixture of relief and uncertainty. He had the proof, but Spectre's presence still hung like a shadow over everything. I needed to continue moving cautiously, always one step ahead of Jonathan and his accomplices. Now, with the evidence in hand, he was closer than ever to exposing all the corruption. But he knew that the path ahead would still be full of challenges and dangers. In the midst of the investigation, the difficulties continued to grow, and I found myself increasingly overwhelmed by an avalanche of responsibilities. In addition to dealing with the embezzlement of funds that Jonathan Black was orchestrating, I had to worry about my father, whose health was rapidly deteriorating. He required ongoing and expensive medical treatment, and I knew that if I lost my job, his well-being would be at risk. I clearly remember one night in particular, sitting at the kitchen table, surrounded by stacks of documents, when my phone rang. It was Dr. Silva, my father's oncologist. "Emily, we need to talk about your father's treatment. The chemotherapy is working, but he needs a new medication that is not covered by his health plan." I felt a lump in my throat. "Doctor, what is the cost of this medicine?" "Emily, we're talking somewhere around $10,000 a month." My heart sank. $10,000. How could I get so much money while fighting to maintain my position in the company and expose Jonathan? The situation seemed untenable. At that moment, Tyler Mitchell, my coworker and confidant, walked into the kitchen. He noticed my worried expression and walked over. "Emily, what's going on? You look devastated." I sighed deeply. "It's my dad, Tyler. His treatment is extremely expensive, and I don't know how I'll be able to afford it if I lose my job." He placed a comforting hand on my shoulder. "I know we're dealing with a lot right now, but you're not alone. Let's find a solution together." Those words gave me a little hope, but I knew reality was cruel. Every minute that passed, I felt the weight of family responsibility pulling me down. What should I do? Continue investigating Jonathan and risk the job that supported my father's treatment, or turn a blind eye to corruption and ensure my family's financial stability? The nights were long and sleepless. I spent hours reviewing documents, trying to find a definitive clue that could bring Jonathan down once and for all. Simultaneously, I had to be there for my father, taking him to doctor appointments, taking care of him at home, and trying to be strong for him. During one of these hospital visits, my father held my hand and looked into my eyes. "Emily, you've been working so hard. I'm worried about you. I don't want you to sacrifice yourself for my sake." Tears welled up in my eyes. "Dad, I can't leave you without treatment. You are everything to me." He squeezed my hand tightly. "And you are everything to me, my daughter. But I don't want you to lose your integrity. Do what needs to be done, follow your heart." His words gave me renewed strength. I knew I had to keep fighting, both for him and for the truth. Each day, I split between the hospital and the office, trying to balance the impossible. The support of Tyler and Lisa, the accountant who had become my ally, was crucial. Without them, I wouldn't have been able to move forward. One afternoon, as we reviewed more documents in the conference room, Lisa spoke, trying to ease the tension. "Emily, We're going to make it. I promise we're going to expose Jonathan and make sure his father gets the treatment he needs. I nodded, trying to maintain confidence. Thank you, Lisa. I don't know what I would do without you and Tyler. She smiled, but her look was serious. We're in this together. And remember, you're not alone in this fight. Despite the difficulties, this support network kept me going. Each day brought new challenges, but also new opportunities to find a solution. I knew that no matter how bleak the situation seemed, I couldn't give up. My father's health and the integrity of the company depended on it. As I got closer to the truth, the threats against me became more and more intense. Jonathan, realizing that someone was about to discover his secrets, began taking drastic measures to silence any threats. It all started on a Monday morning. As I left my building, I noticed that there was a strange man across the street, watching me suspiciously. I tried to ignore it, but the feeling of being watched persisted. That same night, when I returned home, I found my apartment ransacked. Drawers open, papers scattered, and all my personal belongings out of place. My heart raced. I immediately called Lisa. Lisa, my apartment was broken into. I do not know what to do, I said, trying to control the panic in my voice. Emily, are you okay? She asked, clearly worried. Yes, I'm fine, but I need to get out of here, I replied, looking around, trying to understand if there was anything of value that could have been taken. Lisa suggested that I stay at her house for a while, and I said yes. I knew that staying in my apartment would be dangerous. That night, as I tried to sleep on Lisa's couch, I received an anonymous message on my cell phone: "Stop now or there will be consequences." My blood ran cold. The message was clear and direct. The threats were increasing and I knew Jonathan was behind it all. The next day, I talked to Tyler about what was going on. Despite the suspicions that were already beginning to swirl around in my head, I still saw him as an ally. Tyler, someone broke into my apartment. I'm receiving threats, he said, trying to keep his voice steady. Emily, we need to be cautious. Jonathan is clearly willing to do anything to keep his secrets hidden. Tyler replied, with a serious look. From that moment on, I began to realize that my career, my safety, and my personal life were seriously at risk. I decided it was time to take more serious precautions. I asked Lisa to keep the most important documents in a safe place and started using a disposable cell phone to avoid tracking. One day, as I was leaving work, I realized I was being followed. I accelerated my pace, trying to lose whoever it was, but the person continued to follow me. I went into a convenience store and, desperate, called Tyler. Tyler, someone is following me, he said, with a trembling voice. Stay where you are. I'm coming to get you, he responded quickly. When Tyler arrived, it was already dark. We quickly got into the car and he took me to a safe place. On the way, he looked at me and said, Emily, you need to know that Jonathan is much more dangerous than we imagine. He has people everywhere. That night was a turning point. I became increasingly paranoid, looking over my shoulder, trying to avoid busy places. The pressure was starting to take a toll on my mental health. Every step I took felt like I was being watched. Every move was being calculated by Jonathan and his network. Finally, I decided that I couldn't go on like this. I set up a meeting with Lisa and Tyler to discuss our next steps. We needed to act quickly, before Jonathan could silence me for good. We can't wait any longer, I said, with determination. We have to gather all the evidence and expose Jonathan as quickly as possible. I agree, Lisa said. But we need to be careful. He won't give up easily. I know it's risky, but it's the only way to end this, Tyler added. That night, returning to Lisa's house, I received another anonymous message: "This is your last chance." I knew time was running out and that Jonathan would do anything to stop me. But I wasn't going to give up. Not now. She was more determined than ever to reveal the truth and ensure justice was served. Tyler's revelation was like a knife to the heart. For weeks, I believed he was an ally, someone I could trust in the midst of all the darkness and betrayal. But one rainy night, as we stood in the company parking lot, Tyler pulled me aside, his face pale with anxiety. "Emily, we need to talk," he said, his voice shaking slightly. I frowned, feeling a chill run down my spine. "What's wrong, Tyler?" He looked around, making sure no one was watching us. "I never wanted you to know this, but I can't keep up this lie anymore. Jonathan blackmailed me." My heart almost stopped. "What are you saying?" "He discovered something about my past, something that could ruin my career and my personal life. In exchange for keeping it a secret, Jonathan forced me to spy on you," Tyler confessed, the guilt evident in his eyes. I felt my world fall apart. "So this whole time, you were cheating on me?" Tyler shook his head desperately. "It wasn't like that, Emily. At first, I did as he asked, but I soon realized that Jonathan was a monster. I wanted to protect you, to help take him down." "Protect me? Help me?" I laughed bitterly, feeling angry tears run down my face. "You were watching me, reporting everything I did. How can you think that's helpful?" "I know it seems unforgivable," he said, voice barely above a whisper. "But I swear, Emily, I want to make this right. Let me help take Jonathan down. I have information that could be the key to ending this network of corruption." I turned away from him, feeling a mix of anger and despair. "How can I trust you, Tyler? After all this?" He approached, eyes begging for forgiveness. "Because I regret every moment I betrayed you. Because I know you're the only person capable of exposing Jonathan and saving this company. And because I don't want to live with that guilt for the rest of my life." I remained silent, struggling with my conflicting feelings. Part of me wanted to push him away, never see him again. But another part, the part that still believed in justice, knew that maybe he was our best chance. "If I accept your help," I said finally, "you will have to give me all the information you have. No secrets, no lies." "I promise, Emily," he replied, the sincerity in his voice genuine. "I will do whatever is necessary to correct my mistakes." Reluctantly, but determined to use every available resource to take down Jonathan, I decided to accept Tyler's offer. We would work together, but I would keep a close eye on him, ready to act if he betrayed me again. Over the next few days, Tyler passed me a series of compromising documents and emails that he had obtained over time. These documents revealed not only Jonathan's involvement, but also that of other high-ranking executives. Each piece of information was like a weapon in our arsenal, ready to be used against the network of corruption that dominated the company. During one of these document review sessions, Tyler and I were in my apartment, surrounded by stacks of papers and laptops. "Here's another transfer that looks suspicious," he said, pointing to an email exchanged between Jonathan and another executive. "That's perfect," I replied, writing down the details. "If we can cross-reference this information with the accounts Lisa collected, we will have irrefutable proof." Tyler watched me for a moment, his expression softening. "I know it's still hard for you to trust me, Emily. But I want you to know that I'm completely committed to this." I looked at him, still wary but ready to move forward. "Let's focus on what we need to do. Taking down Jonathan is our priority." And so, with Tyler's help, getting closer and closer to dismantling the entire plot of corruption, I felt that, despite the betrayals and challenges, the truth was finally within our reach. Finally, after months of fear, tension and meticulous investigation, Lisa and I managed to gather all the evidence necessary to expose Jonathan and his network of accomplices. We decided that the best way to ensure the truth came to light would be during the company's shareholder meeting, a public event where media presence would be guaranteed. The plan was simple but risky. We would expose Jonathan live, irrefutably. On the day of the meeting, my heart was beating fast. Every step I took towards the auditorium seemed to echo inside me, increasing anxiety. Lisa was next to me, just as nervous as I was. "Are you sure we're doing the right thing, Emily?" she asked, her voice shaking slightly. "Yes, Lisa. It's now or never," I replied, trying to convey more confidence than I actually felt. We have to end this once and for all. Spectre, the mysterious hacker, ensured that the evidence would be broadcast live to the media. I was still suspicious of him, but at that point, we had no other choice. We needed all the hands possible to give visibility to our complaint. As the meeting began, Jonathan was at the front, charismatic as always, talking about the company's great advances. It was hard to believe that someone so charming could be so corrupt. I prepared to interrupt him, but suddenly I felt a firm hand on my arm. "Emily, can we talk for a minute?" It was Jonathan. He pulled me to a more private corner of the auditorium. "I know what you're planning to do," he said, his eyes darkening with a veiled threat. "You can't stop me, Jonathan," I replied, trying to keep my voice steady. "I have all the evidence I need to put an end to you." He smiled, but it wasn't a friendly smile. "I'm sure you do. But I have something you value even more than your quest for justice, your father's life." My heart stopped for a second. "If you go through with this, you'll never see your father alive again." I froze, the threat echoing in my mind. I knew he was capable of anything, but I couldn't let him go unpunished. I looked at Lisa, who was watching from afar, with a worried expression. She knew the risk we were taking. "Jonathan," I said, trying to stall for time. "You don't have to do this. We can find a solution." "There is no solution, Emily. Either you give up now, or your father pays the price," he interrupted me, his eyes shining with a cruel coldness. At that moment, I felt a surge of courage. I knew I was risking everything, but I couldn't let him continue destroying lives. "I'm going to stick with the plan," I declared. "If anything happens to my father, you will be the first suspect." Jonathan stepped back, surprised by my determination. I returned to the auditorium with Lisa, and as he resumed his performance, I gave the signal for Spectre to begin the live broadcast. Jonathan realized too late what was happening. The evidence appeared on the screens, exposing a corruption scheme that involved several senior executives. "This is an outrage," Jonathan shouted, trying to maintain control. But the room was in an uproar. Tyler, who had redeemed himself, stood up and confronted Jonathan, preventing him from escaping. "Your game is up, Jonathan," Tyler said, holding him tightly. Lisa and I watched as the police arrived and took Jonathan and his accomplices into custody. I felt a huge weight being lifted off my shoulders. Justice was finally being served. Later, I discovered that Spectre was actually Jonathan's brother, seeking revenge for being betrayed by him in the past. With Jonathan out of the way, the company underwent restructuring, and I was promoted. I used part of my new salary to guarantee treatment for my father, who, fortunately, recovered well. Finally, I could breathe a sigh of relief, knowing that justice had prevailed. The moment I decided to risk everything to expose Jonathan, tension was in the air. It was the day of the shareholder meeting, and I knew that this would be my last chance. I put on my best attire, took a deep breath and prepared myself for the battle that was to come. Tyler and Lisa were by my side, ready for anything. We had spent sleepless nights, planning every detail, and now everything was at stake. "Emily, are you sure you want to do this?" Tyler asked, his voice thick with concern. "I have no other choice, Tyler. If we don't do this now, they will continue to go unpunished, and my father will not have the chance to receive the treatment he needs. We have to end this corruption once and for all," I replied, trying to hide my nervousness. We entered the meeting room, where the shareholders were already gathered. Jonathan, with his charismatic smile, was in the center, confident as ever. When he saw me, his gaze narrowed. He knew something was about to happen, but he had no idea what awaited him. I took the floor and began the presentation. My hands were shaking, but my voice remained steady. I showed the documents, the fraudulent transfers, the incriminating emails. Each test was a direct blow to Jonathan's impeccable facade. "This is absurd. These accusations are unfounded," Jonathan shouted, trying to maintain control. "Emily, you are making a serious mistake. Before I could respond, Lisa and Tyler stood up, bringing more evidence. Tyler, with the data he had obtained while he was still being blackmailed, and Lisa, with accounting documents that proved the involvement of the other executives. "No more lies, Jonathan," Lisa said, her voice firm. "We have all the necessary proof. It's the end for you." Suddenly, the doors to the room opened and the police entered, ready to make arrests. Jonathan tried to escape, but Tyler and Lisa intercepted him, blocking his exit. "You're not getting away this time," Tyler said, holding Jonathan by the shoulders. Meanwhile, Spectre, the mysterious hacker, has revealed his true identity. He was, in fact, Jonathan's brother, betrayed by him in the past and now seeking revenge. His face was marked by the pain of the past, but his eyes shone with the satisfaction of seeing Jonathan finally confronted. "Jonathan, did you think you could betray me and get away with it?" Spectre said in an icy tone of voice. "Today, you pay for everything." The police handcuffed Jonathan and the other corrupt executives. The meeting room was in an uproar, but I felt a wave of relief. Finally, the truth was exposed. Finally, Jonathan and his accomplices would face justice. With Jonathan's fall, the company underwent restructuring. I was promoted, and with my new salary, I was able to guarantee the medical treatment that my father needed so much. Peace finally began to return to my life. One quiet afternoon, as my father and I walked through the park, he looked at me with a smile on his lips. "Emily, you did the right thing. I'm so proud of you." "Thank you, Father. It wasn't easy, but it was worth it." "Now, we can move forward, free from threats and corruption," I replied, feeling a deep gratitude for having managed to protect the truth and my family. The battle was over, and I could finally breathe in peace, knowing that justice had prevailed.